Okay, so welcome everybody to my YouTube channel. This is Dan, the real estate man. Today I have my guest, Patti Grider. Grider. Sorry, I always butcher your name, Patti.
All right.
And today we are covering a topic where we're going to talk about what do you do when you're just moving to the United States and you want to buy a house. Patty's been doing some work with me for the last few years. We've helped, countless clients in the process of moving to the United States and getting a house here. And I'm very happy to have her on the show today. So, Patty, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate you inviting me on here. I'm with First Financial Bank in Columbus. I have an office in downtown Columbus. And like he said, Dan and I have helped thousands of people come into the United States and buy a home here. I have personally been doing mortgages for almost 40 years now and can pretty much answer most questions that you're going to have.
Yeah, you
So
started
I'm going
in
to let
preschool,
you
right?
do what?
You started in preschool.
Yeah, I started at age 5. And so, anyway, but I do specialize in non permanent resident alien product that we do offer. I think we may be the only local bank that offers that at all. And we can get into the details. So, you go ahead and ask me questions and we'll go from there.
Okay, absolutely. So, Patty, I am a brand new person. I am moving to Indiana, not necessarily Columbus, but I'm moving to the area because I just got a job offer in this area. So I'm bringing my family and we're moving here. What should I do first? How do I start the process?
Okay. Well, my first question normally is, do you have any credit in the United States? If you're just moving here, of course, the answer is probably going to be no. And as far as me doing loan, I could do any state pretty much. There's a few states I can't do, but I could do, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Illinois, wherever. Anyway, normally the you go to the bank and they're going to tell you they cannot help you because you have no US credit score. That's where I come in. We have an outlet to be able to use international credit. So if you have credit in your home country, we basically get an international credit report and we will make our loan decision based on that. We like to see that you have, say, 12 months housing history where you're coming from. How much was your house payment? Was it paid on time? They basically want to hear back 12 months on that international credit report to show that you've not been late on your housing payment. Some people own their homes outside the country. They don't have loans on their home. So what we do is we'll say, okay, well, if you paid your utility bills on time, if you had a car loan, if you had a Visa card, any of that can go into that international credit report. We like to see at least 3 to 4 references on there. And then that usually takes about a week to get in. There's no cost for the client to be able to do that. And then I basically bubble it up to management to say, okay, here's this person's application. Here is their credit history. And then they usually, will grant it if I could show at least 3 to 4 good credit references there.
Okay.
Um, the next step then would be down payment money. How much money are you going to need to buy a home? The answer on that is a minimum of 10.1% of the purchase price. So if you're buying a $300,000 house, you're going to roughly need about $31,000 in down payment money to be able to go on that program with no US credit score, to
Okay.
give you an idea.
So that's good. So understanding, I'm brand new in the country. I don't have a credit established in here yet, but I had a life before I moved here. So I can still bank
Exactly.
on that life that I had in my home country so that, I've been paying my bills on time and I have built some credit history here. And then we use that credit
Mm-hmm.
history towards establishing your credibility in the country so you get approved for a mortgage here.
Exactly.
Good deal.
Exactly.
And that works both ways, right? Rather, if you rented a house in your home country or if you
Mhm.
had a mortgage in your home country, you can still use both of those as,
Or
payments.
or own it free and clear, because then if you own the house free and clear, we usually just get something showing you owned it with no loan and that we you basically paid your utility bills on time or maintenance cost or any monthly cost that you may have on that house. We could use that instead of a loan against it or rent.
Okay, that's fantastic. And yeah, we've been through that process before. But for people coming into the country, there's so many nuances, so many things that are just new for them, getting acclimated to the culture, and then finding a house and knowing that they will be able to buy that house. It just takes a big chunk out of their shoulders to say, okay, at least you can get to into a house. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, they come in, they don't know the area. They want to test the waters. They want to rent. They want to um, buy a house later. Now, are there some time frames, for using your credits that's coming from out of the country versus, if let's say I decide I want to rent for a little bit, how much time do I have to use my credit from out of the country? I'm assuming, I can't be here for 10 years and then say, well, I just want to use my credit from when I was in Brazil or in Mexico, right? What's the time frame there?
Usually, once people come here, if they are here longer than 6 months, a lot of times they're getting car loans or Visa cards or credit cards, that kind of thing, and they're establishing United States credit scores. So, but if you've been here still 6, 8 months, I think I've done one where the guy was here a year. He did not have a U.S. credit score, really hadn't used a credit, but he'd rented and he had prior international credit, and we were still able to do it. So I'd say a year max.
Okay, that's a good rule of thumb because most leases are at least going to go for a year. So I
Exactly.
think a good advice would be, if you're coming in, because establishing credit in the country might take a little longer than a year sometimes. So being able to buy
Mm-hmm.
the house in your first year using your international credit is a great option. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but if people decide that they don't want to do that right away, it's good to understand that, hey, if you decide to do that later, you might need to use your credit that you establish here, and that sometimes
Mm-hmm.
might take longer than a year, and you might need
Mm-hmm.
to wait until you now have credit in the country to go that route. So
Exactly.
using
So, so a lot of it is whether you want to rent or buy. It seems like most of the people who have owned a home outside the country a lot of time want to own a home here versus paying rent and kind of, not wanting to build up any equity, that kind of thing. They would prefer to own here right away. A lot of people do.
yeah, that's great. I have another question, and I think most people in this situation would have that question as well. Many people that are moving here from different countries, they might not have or their banking statements or their bills. It might come in different languages, right? It could be in Spanish, Portuguese. How
Mm-hmm.
do we handle that? Does the bank handle that? Do I have to get them translated? Is there like some of it I might need to do myself, or some of that you would do? What's that process?
Well, the down payment money, if we're using the international credit, the down payment money does need to be in a United States bank account at least 60 days before closing. So what most people do is when they start to look for a home, then I'm telling them to please go ahead and move your money, preferably to First Financial Bank, so then we can verify it later from wherever it's pulling from. If they come in and they say, okay, well, it's been here, say 40 days, we want to go ahead and close, a lot of times we can use the international bank statements and we just get them translated. And the other thing they're going to be looking for, though, is are there deposits in that other bank account that are large deposits other than payroll? Because what the federal government makes us do is we have to track any money you're using for a down payment back 60 days. And so that's why we prefer, if you're moving here, it's probably going to take you 60 days to find a home, close on a home anyway. So in the very beginning of the process, if you can go ahead and move your money into the States, more than helpful.
Okay. So it's a good watch then, thinking about those 60 days for the process. If you're moving here, you're have temporary housing that's provided from the company, and let's say you have 3 months or 90 days, then you have about a month to find a house and fund the
Hmm.
account so that you can close within those 90 days, because we do have that 60 days waiting period that we want to see the money sitting there.
Hmm.
I think you touched on another point that I think it's important. If you're just out moving in the country now, I think you can wait a little bit before you go getting other loans. If you want to buy a house, I think that's your priority, right? Let's wait a little bit
Hmm.
to buy that car, to start getting other types of loans, because that initial, period, you want to make sure that you qualify for the house, and that's more important. And as soon as you close the next day, if you want to go to the dealership and get you a car, great.
Go for it. Yeah.
But it
Yeah, because I have had people where they will go, they're initially looking at buying a home, but then they go buy a car and have a $900 car payment. And then all of a sudden they can't qualify for as much of a house as they would like because they have this hefty car payment. So, yes, if you can make your house your priority when you are starting to move here, that's always good.
Okay, so good. Two things for us to understand that's going to be good. Number one, if you can delay on larger purchases and other loans, well, let's do that. And the second one is the sooner you can get the money in the country for the down payment, the sooner you can close on the house, because roughly 60 days out is when you're going to be able to close. So if you are moving into the country and you're find a house your first week here, don't expect that the week later you're going to be moving into the house. You might need to make some other arrangements, maybe temporary housing, maybe a hotel or something, because the buying process will take you roughly 2 months for that money to sit on the account, and then for the loan approvals, all the paperwork, title work, all of that takes time as well. So it's not like in a car dealership you can walk in and walk out with a car. In the house
Mhm.
buying process, you can pick the house and like it, but most likely it will take you a couple of months to get into that house. Which
Exactly.
is fast, right? Some countries that might take a lot longer than that. Some countries might be faster, but it's good for people who are coming into the country to understand roughly what to expect for a
Sure, sure.
timeline.
And the main thing too, to even start that international credit process is a valid social security number. So sometimes people will come in and they'll go to the social security office and that's a time frame, to get their actual social security number. So then I could go with it, but I can't do anything without that social security number.
Okay, so first step, let's get on that social security number issued to you. When you get that, you get a hold of Patty. Say, hey Patty, I got my social security number. Let's start the process. And then you're going to start collecting some paperwork from them. What kind of paperwork do they need to give you so that you can start on the process?
Normally, I just send them a international application, which asks for, your electric bill. Who did you pay? What's the phone number? Or who's your mortgage with? What's the phone number? Or let's say account number, that kind of thing. It's like a sheet just to fill out. And then I also send them a regular credit application where it lists like who have you worked for the last 2 years, where have you lived for the past 2 years, all those type questions. So there's like two applications to it. It's not hard at all. I
Okay.
mean, most people could do it inside a half hour.
Okay. So it's similar to an application that you would do for people who live in the country, right? They want to know,
Exactly.
what's
Mm-hmm.
your source of income, where do you work? How much money do you make? Have you been paying your bills? Just like buying a house if you had credit that was established here in the country.
Exactly.
Now, I know that there are some regulations around down payment, right? So that we have to
Mm-hmm.
understand where that money is coming from. A lot of people that are moving, they will have the one-offs, which I call, right? Because they are moving, let's say they sold their cars, or they might have some
Mm-hmm.
money that doesn't come necessarily from their employer. They may have relocating funds that were deposited by their company, but they may have, moving money, I would say, that either was deposited to offset some of those costs, or things that they are getting rid of in the process of moving to a different country.
Yeah, and once it sits
Anything
here
that
for
they need
60
to
days,
know.
we don't care where it came from,
Okay, as long as it's there for 60
because
days.
we only look backwards 60 days.
Now, what if it's within that 60 days? They move here and they couldn't sell their car, let's say, before they came. A month later, their car got sold, right? Their family in the country, in their home country, sold their car, and they deposit that money. What do they do then?
Mhm. It's totally allowable. We just have to track it. So if I'm going to say, okay, he's going to sell his car, then usually we get a copy of the title or proof of ownership that they actually own the car. And then what they call a bill of sale, which is just like one sheet of paper I could even give them to say someone signing that they are buying this particular car, and a copy of their check. It just cannot be cash. Cash, you just can't track it.
Okay.
So the other thought I had too is, I set a minimum of 10.1% down that has to be here at least 60 days. If the customer has at least 5% down, so on $300,000 would be like $15,000. If they've got that as their own money that they've moved here or got a 401k loan, whatever's allowable for the 5%, the other 5% can come from a gift as long as it's like a blood relative. So a lot of
Okay.
times people come in, they don't quite have their 10%, but they'll call their mother or whoever in the other country and they'll wire it in. And then the mom just signs a form that says, this is a gift. It's not a loan that they have payments on. And then we just have that person wire the money into the United States account.
That's
So
fantastic.
sometimes we can get around it and get, 5% into it.
That's fantastic. I know that it's specific. That's helpful for a lot of people moving in from other countries where current rates don't help them, right? They might be coming from a country where exchange rates are going to make you know, their money in the home country go down by a factor of 5 or 10 or 20,
A
depending on the
lot.
country that you're coming from. Um,
And they don't want to move at all.
yeah,
Sometimes too. Yeah. And so usually I tell people, if you can move at least the 10, if you've got the money here and you just say in India or wherever, and you've got the 10.1%, but you really just don't want to move it or try to get exact. I usually tell people at least move your 10.1% plus maybe about $3,500 in US dollars to cover your closing cost. Although on your job, sometimes you can get the seller to pay those closing costs. So,
yes, yes, I can help
so you
with
might
that.
just need the flat. Exactly. Yeah. I just, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's a good, rule of thumb. If you're thinking a 10% down or 10.1% down, the more money you can bring, the better, right? Because you may have other
Mm,
expenses as you move into the country, you're establishing yourself here. You
right.
may have temporary housing, but you may have other things, that you might need money for. So the more you can bring, better. And understanding that timing, you know, maybe you have investments, your home country, you have stocks, or you have assets that you might want to sell, and that will take time. So understanding the sooner you can bring and the more you can bring, the better. But at least if you have that 10.1 sitting in there, that will help you secure a house that you will choose. Good deal. So that
Yeah,
is,
and sometimes too, I can get exceptions for if it's not been here quite 60 days, but I have proof of where it came from, like stock funds in Mexico or wherever. Then a lot of times I can get it closed maybe a little faster if I could prove where it came from, even when I get them
yeah,
translated.
it's just a little bit more paperwork, right? But if we
Hmm.
have been in 60 days, then it's good, right? It's
Exactly.
clear.
Yeah, it's just wham bam. You don't have any exceptions or trying to bubble it up to management. Yeah.
Okay, good deal. Now, okay, I come in. I want to pick up a house now. I have an idea of how much money I make. Can you help them with understanding roughly what they would qualify for? How does that work? Right? I'm moving into the country. I know what my offer is. I know how much I want to spend in terms of housing, but I have no idea because of your rates in the country, what I would qualify for in terms of a house. Do you have a good
Mhm.
rule of thumb, or is that something that you help them guide so that say, what, based on your income, you can look for a house up to X, or
Right.
what does that look like?
Basically, I start with the gross monthly income. So this is income that you're earning before taxes. So it seems like most of my international clients will come in with a flat salary. Like they'll say, okay, I'm making $130,000 a year or even $120,000 a year. So then I say, okay, that's $10,000 a month. And then I just start backing into the numbers there. I'm allowed to go up to 36% of that gross monthly income. So if say the person's monthly income is $10,000, then I say, okay, then your maximum payments with everything, if you are going to buy a car or if you do have a Visa card, anything like that, has to be included in that 36% or in that $3,600 maximum payment. So then I start to say, okay, you have no other payments. So you can afford up to a $3,600 house payment, and then I do need to include taxes and insurance in that. So I take that 3,600 minus probably $250 for property taxes, $150 for homeowners insurance, and then back down into the say, okay, here is your maximum loan amount based on that. And then you would add your down payment to it. So but yes, they just call. And sometimes too, when they're looking at those maximums, they do want to include a car payment. So then it's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and subtract out a $500 car payment just in case you go buy a car in the meantime. So then you're not maxed out going into that.
So fairly straight, right? As long as you know how much money you're making, we know that that number is 36% of that, and then you
Mhm.
can figure out that number, right?
Yes, yes. And they can always call, text, email, whatever. And a lot of times I'll just back into those numbers for people without doing any kind of credit checks or anything, just general knowledge.
Okay, good deal. And that is good because a lot of people they say, okay, I'm coming into the country. How much housing can I get? Can I get a 5 bedroom house with a pool and a view? Do I have to go
Hmm.
to an apartment? A lot of people coming in from large cities in across the world, they were living in an apartment in Sao Paulo
Hmm.
or Shanghai or Mexico City, where a lot of people
Hmm.
will live in apartments. And then they come to, let's say, Columbus, Indiana, that we love, and they
Hmm.
will usually get into a house here and not an apartment. Columbus is not big on apartments. It's usually a house, so it's a big change. And knowing how much housing you can get kind of gives you direction in terms of what neighborhoods can I afford, can I look. Do I want to stay in Columbus? Maybe do I want to go to Indy because I'm coming from a big city and I want to be in a larger metro area.
Exactly.
And prices will fluctuate between different places. So having a rough estimate of how much housing you can get will kind of give you direction on what your options are.
At least they can start looking, yeah, to see what's out there.
Okay.
That's where it goes back to your job.
Yes, absolutely. And the good thing is, if you are working with me, I will work with Patty and we'll figure that out for you. So you have minimum work on your end. You give me a list of what your must haves are. And between the two of us, we'll try to make it happen. We'll find you a good house in a good neighborhood. If you have young children and you have concerns around school districts, we'll narrow that down. We'll find a good school districts. If you need 4 bedrooms because you have a large family, or you need more, you need five, we'll make sure that we can find something that will fit in your budget, and Betty will make sure that we get all of those numbers lined up so that we can move on in the process.
Exactly. And the customer really does need no knowledge. I mean, between Dan and I, we would take care of you and say, okay, here's the process. Here's what you need to do next. Fax me a bank statement, or here, go shop for your homeowner's insurance. We try to make it as simple as possible to try to get you in a home.
Yeah, and that's another point that you brought up that a lot of people they might need a little bit of help with. It's okay. Well, I'm buying a house. What do I need to get the house? Well, you will need homeowner insurance, right? The bank needs that house to have insurance because if something happens to the house, that's your collateral, and then the bank will be
Mhm.
able to recover those funds. Uh, but all in all, it's a fairly straightforward process. Get you
Mhm.
a good agent that
Mhm.
will show you the options and will walk you through the process. There's inspection processes. Do you want to inspect that house? And let me close this here. and we go from there, and we'll take care of all your needs. Patty,
Hmm.
we are starting to run out of time.
Okay.
If I have additional questions, can I get a hold of you? How do I ask more questions in case I'm new in the country and I want help?
Sure, sure. The easiest way is probably email, and I'll upload my card here shortly, but it's Patty with an I, Patti, Grider, Grider, at bankappfirst.com. And the bank at first is spelled all the way out. And
Okay,
then, or you can always call me 812-376-1716. Again,
perfect.
812-376-1716.
Perfect. And I will make sure to add that contact information down on the screen. You've seen Patty's name right here. So patty.grider at bankatfirst.com. You can
Correct.
email. She is phenomenal answering emails. I don't think I know anyone who answers emails as fast as you do. And
Thank
I've
you.
sent you text messages and emails sometimes early in the morning or late in the day, and I get an answer like that.
Good, good. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've been doing this forever, so I just want to, I'm honest. I'm at the bank. You can walk in there and talk to me if you prefer, so it, Dan is too, that, we want to do the simplest and quickest and honest way to get you into a home.
Yeah, we're always available. So if you need to get a hold of either of us, just send us an email, text us, message us. I'm also on WhatsApp. So and you want to get a hold of me, yeah, I will be available to you. You don't have a phone in the country, send me an email or send me a WhatsApp from your home country, and I can answer your messages there as well. Um, this is all I had for today. Patty, thanks for joining with me today
Thank you
here
for having
and
me.
walking people through that process. It's such an important process that people moving into the country, and I feel so glad to be part of that process and have you as a partner as people moving to the country. So, thanks
I'm
for
like,
joining me today.
okay, thank you so much, Dan.
Okay, you have a great one.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.